Welcome into the Your Illini Nation pregame show as the 4-1 Illini get set to take on Big Ten West rivals Iowa, who come into this game 3-2, 1-1 in Big Ten play. I'm Andy Olson. We'll be joined shortly by Bret Beherns and Jeremy Werner, who are at the field. But first, let's take a look at the matchup for tonight's game. I mentioned Iowa 3-2, getting some tough games in the Big Ten early, and they're certainly going to want to make a statement against this Illini team coming off their big win 34-10 against Wisconsin last week. It should be an exciting night at Memorial Stadium. This one getting kicked off at about 90 minutes here, 6:30 on Big Ten Network tonight. It's an orange out. I know that they were really pushing ticket sales for this one, trying to get as many fans into the stadium as possible. We're going to have coverage online where you're watching this right now, on air as well tonight at 10:30 of the newscast, highlights, post-game sound as well. But before we get there, we need to break this game down and get to the boys who are out at Memorial Stadium right now, getting you ready for this one. Bret Beherns and Jeremy Werner. Let's get the first word from Memorial Stadium, guys.
It is a beautiful night for football here at Zupke Field. Bret Beherns and Jeremy Werner. And Illinois is relevant in October. What do you know, Jeremy? We're not talking about basketball season. Illinois and Iowa, and we both think it's going to be competitive. How about that?
Yeah, just to take you behind the scenes here. Bret and I, at this point of October, are usually begging for Illinois Basketball Media Day. That was yesterday. It was almost like, guys, why are we doing this now? We got a big football game to get ready for. We do. This is a big football game. Illinois is obviously trying to get fans in the stadium. I know that's been a big topic about ticket prices and getting people and what the attendance will be. But this will be the best atmosphere of the Bret Bielema era. That is for sure, Bret, because you have an Illinois team that has proven itself over the last month, has played really good football throughout the year, and an Iowa team, like Wisconsin last week, that isn't quite up to its own standard, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So if you can put together a streak-breaking win at Wisconsin with a streak-breaking win against Iowa, who you haven't beat since 2008, I think that would be a true arrival moment for Illinois, where we'd have to start talking about them, Purdue, and maybe Minnesota is kind of the Big Ten West favorites. I know Nebraska's 2-1 at this point, but their wins haven't been quite as impressive. But still, I think that's when we can start talking about, oh, this has a chance to be a special season.
I like how you phrased that this week, a rival moment, because I'm a little bit more hesitant in terms of like, okay, Illinois football is back. I think I need to see a bigger sample size, but they've given, I think, fans a reason to be hopeful. I saw that walking in. There's certainly a lot more people. There's a lot of Iowa fans here too. I think that's going to factor into the attendance number today. But they haven't beat Illinois, or they haven't beat Iowa and Wisconsin in the same year since 1989. It's been a long time. I went back in the record books this week and dug that number up, and that's that. And they haven't played every year, so it's not like a full stat where you can look at it and say like, hey, okay, Illinois football is back in that sense. But two big like rivals, I want to say, but I don't even consider them rivals because they haven't been competitive games.
It's what you want to be your rival.
Correct, yes.
I mean, Illinois football wants to be Iowa, about what their standard has become, what Wisconsin's standard has become, and to become those teams, you have to start beating them. And what I think what this team has in front of them is kind of what Illinois basketball had Io DeSumu's sophomore year, right? They started ending streaks. They won at Wisconsin. They started beating some of the teams they haven't beaten in a really long time. That's what Illinois has the opportunity to do. And I think momentum matters in a program. It certainly matters in recruiting. And all of a sudden, if you get through the first half of the season at 5-1, which I think would be most people's best case scenarios, we'd be saying, you're a little too optimistic there before the season. If you can get to that, I think you're setting up a back half of the schedule where you had the chance to do those things. And I think what makes this different, the 4-1 start, is you should be 5-0. But the things you're doing, Bret, are sustainable. Good defense, running the football, and an efficient passing offense. It's going to be tested the most today, I think, especially offensively, because Iowa's defense, unlike Wisconsin, I think is really good. But Iowa's offense, not so good.
Yeah, we're going to break all of that down coming up here, Andy. In the next 30 minutes on the Your Illini Nation pregame show. Real quick here, wind looks like it's coming out of the south. It is a little chilly here even now with that wind. I expect it to get even colder come game time, and as we wrap up here tonight about 10 o'clock, I would certainly expect it to be chilly. Hopefully everyone is bundled up. And one note, we did see Josh McCray out here on the field warming up. I wanted to pass that along here early on in the show as well. We don't know if he's going to play. Has not played since going down in that season opener against Wyoming. Has a brace on his right knee. We'll see if he actually suits up or is just out here warming up today. But I think even just seeing him out here, Andy, is positive. Jeremy's positive for me.
Yeah, I think it's a sign that he is definitely progressing in the way Bret Beherns was kind of done this last week. He ended any speculation that he could play right away. Like, I thought him coming back now or even Minnesota was probably the best case scenario. I thought maybe he'd sit out in the next off week, come back against Nebraska, you'd have him for the final 5 games. But to see him out here getting these reps, we know he's practiced, he's been running around. Whether he'll play or not, I'm still skeptical about. But certainly if you can add an offensive playmaker like that at some point in the next couple of weeks on top of Chase Brown, because that's something we got to monitor moving forward. Is Chase Brown has a lot of carries, as he should, but if you can add a guy like Josh McCray to take a couple series and be a guy near the red zone in the goal line, certainly would be a huge, trade deadline addition if you can get somebody like Josh McCray.
Yeah, you'd feel like a little buzz, a little juice if you're Illinois, just getting that player back to help and complement this offense, however that might look. Andy, that's the first word here from the stadium.
Yeah, Brett, you're trying to take Kevin Leidy's job there. You're trying to talk about the weather. Which way the wind is coming in as well?
I should say, the wind's swirling now. It looked like south, but then I look over here and it looks like it's coming from the north. We'll just dog on Kevin because he's in Vegas right now. It's like 90 degrees out there. He might not even be awake from last night yet. So, Kevin, if you're listening, I don't want your job because, who knows what the wind's going to be here. Although he gets paid to be wrong, right? Isn't that how that goes, Andy?
We don't get paid to be wrong, unfortunately. We unfortunately have to be right, unlike Kevin. Seth will get the weather right later tonight as well. He's over here getting it ready for you for the 10 o'clock news. Let's take a closer look on the Illini this season. As Jeremy and Brett were talking about, it's been an outstanding start to the year, and that last week against Wisconsin was almost an arrival moment for the Illini. Here's the offensive statistics through 5 games for Illinois. Tommy DeVito really impressing, I think performing better than a lot of people had expected coming into this year. He's over 1,100 yards on the season, 9 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions, but the turnover bug has bitten Illinois in a few games this season. I'm sure we'll talk more about turnover and winning the turnover battle in this game today. Chase Brown, the nation's leading rusher, coming into today's 733 yards on the year, just 4 touchdowns, so not getting as much work in the red zone. He does have a touchdown reception as well on the year, averaging more than 6 yards a carry coming into today. And then the leading receivers, Isaiah Williams with 35 catches, 291 yards, 2 touchdown receptions through 5 games. But the big play man has been Pat Bryant, just 18 receptions, but he has over 300 yards on the season, 2 scores as well for the Illini. And that offense is going to need to come up big today as the Hawkeyes have almost as good of a defense statistically as Illinois coming into this one. We all talk about the Illini really improving on that side of the ball this year and being one of the elite squads in the country. But it's not going to be easy for the Illini offense today, as Iowa Hawkeyes, they're known for their defense as usual. And you guys were mentioning Illinois wanting to become Iowa almost as a program. Well, that starts with the defense as well. And Bret Beherns very familiar with this program. So, Jeremy, we'll toss it back to you here. Want to know what you think about this Illinois offense versus this Iowa defense and why trying to keep the turnovers down could be the key to a pretty low-scoring affair in this one.
Yeah, Iowa's been one of the best defenses in the country for a long time. Phil Parker, their defensive coordinator, has been there a while, and they kind of do the Lovie Smith thing of they force a lot of turnovers, play a lot of coverage, but they have a stronger defensive front than, of course, Lovie Smith had in his time here. So Illinois, I think Brett is going to face a lot of adversity on that side of the ball, but I think this is the kind of test you want. Barry Lundy's offense certainly has been a huge, I think it's the story of the season. I said before the season, Barry Lundy is the most important person in this athletics department this year, and I think what they're doing offensively, the improvement they've shown there is a huge reason this team is having success, because we knew the defense would be good, maybe not as great and as dominant as they've been, but they needed an offense that could complement them, and they have been really efficient in the passing game, but they still run the dang ball, Brett. They still have a lot of those things that make a Bret Beherns team, but the creativity of what we've seen from Barry Lundy, and I think you've seen them improve and improve in the last couple weeks. The offensive line is certainly getting getting better. I've talked to people in the program, think this offensive line is more talented than last year's, and they're more athletic than last year's. And then you have the emergence of Pat Bryant. And Tommy DeVito is just a great decision maker so far. He's been very accurate, gets rid of the ball really quickly. And I think you're seeing him gel with his teammates really, really well. So these are the kind of games why you brought Barry Illini, is find a way to score 20 points and let your defense take care of the rest. But I think you feel good about what they're doing coming in, Brett. But what Iowa does well is they take it away from you. So Illinois cannot have a repeat performance of what they had at Indiana or Virginia. Otherwise, Iowa's going to have a chance to steal this one.
Yeah, and I feel like similar to last season in Iowa City, you give up the special teams touchdown on the kickoff, and then they had an interception in there as well. And hey, that's the difference in a very tightly contested game in that sense. For me, that's where it's at. And I'm fully, we'll talk about our prediction later, obviously, but first team to 20, I think first team to 14 could win this game. I really do. And I think those defensive, whether scores or turnovers, I think whoever scores on defense is going to probably win the game if there is a defense or special teams score. But how do those game-changing turnovers play into it? It's to take momentum. You mentioned that earlier with momentum, and not only a game but a program. And so for me, it's okay, can Illinois limit either a big play, which Iowa's offense has not put up many big plays, but can they limit a big play forced from their offense to the Iowa defense, and then can they make a play? And I think you may only need one or two. If you can make one or two big plays, I think that could be the difference in a game like this.
Yeah, because I just don't think this Iowa offense has shown that it's capable of scoring 20-plus points in a game. We can get into them here in a little bit, but that's why it's so important for the offense to be disciplined and not turn it over, not have penalties. Because you're going to punt the ball quite a bit in this game. I don't think you're going to have as many scoring drives as you had against Wisconsin. I say that, and maybe it's different by the end because I didn't see it coming against Wisconsin. But this Iowa defense is legit, and I think that's what's different about this game than last game is Wisconsin's offense was kind of wounded, but their defense wasn't quite as good as they were previously. Iowa certainly has one really good side of the ball.
And you mentioned the offensive line. That's something that I think is really gelled. We talked about that 3 or 4 weeks ago, is especially on that interior. You feel great about your tackles, but on that interior guard, center guard, how are they gelling? And I've been impressed with what Alex Pihlstrom has done and really how Isaiah and Zai have come together and worked together to make a formidable interior group.
Isaiah Adams has been a revelation. He's been unbelievable this year. I think he's almost as good as what Vidarian Lowe is, and we know how good Vidarian Lowe was. So to have them, Julian Pearl, and Alex Falcheski, I think, playing the best ball of his career so far. But I've seen a lot of growth out of Zai Chrysler the last couple weeks. The staff has said that as well. But I think Alex Pihlstrom at center, a guy who at times I feel like has had imposter syndrome because he's a former walk-on tight end. Now all of a sudden he's a starting center. I think he had to gain his confidence and kind of gain his voice of this group. But I thought he was great against Wisconsin, who's got an NFL nose tackle on their team in Keanu Benton. On some of those quarterback sneak touchdowns, Alex Pihlstrom in that interior was pushing Benton back into the end zone. So that was really impressive. I think that group is getting better and better, which was to be expected. To have some early growing pains. Now they're starting to gel and look like a really good Big Ten group.
And I know Barry Illini Jr. didn't want to necessarily go into it saying we're going to run 3 quarterback sneaks to get into the end zone. It worked, so keep doing it, right? Maybe we'll see it again today if they get down there. But for me, I don't know if Barry trusted his interior offensive line at Indiana. I think that's a fair critique of what that was, and for him to be able to trust that and continue to run it, I loved, because I'm hey, it's so complicated, everything else, there's 1,000 plays and a whatever. Hey, if it works, just do it, right? If Chase Brown works, run Chase Brown.
And Bret Beherns wants that to be the identity. And to be honest with you, the offensive line didn't play well, but some of those calls were longer developing plays. And I think Bret Beherns talked about, hey, Barry's going to learn about what we do, and he's going to learn from his personnel. And I think in that game, he's okay, let's show who we are and push your Wisconsin defensive line around. And let's be honest, you're the one that snaps it. The quarterback just needs to lean in.
Yeah.
You got to be able to make those plays if you're going to be a contender in the Big Ten West.
Yeah, and so for me, that showed some progress. And the other thing was, when we talked about this going into last week, was scoring in the red zone. And I know that they were 5 for 5. They were probably 7 for 7. They scored when they necessarily didn't, they got penalties or it got called back or whatever. I thought that was a huge step forward of progress just for confidence, especially coming into a game like this where you know that possessions are probably at a premium in the red zone.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was mentioning, is you can notice the progress they are making, which is, the turnovers. They have 1 turnover. in the last 2 games. The red zone has improved greatly. The passing attack, you're not seeing the drops you saw early in the season. You're not seeing Tommy DeVito miss some of those deep throws, right, or force it into coverage. I just think week after week, this team is getting better. That says the players are learning and the coaches are doing a really good job on that side of the ball. So that's what I'm saying. The offense has made huge strides, and I think that's why you feel comfortable and confident coming to a game like this, is because not only do you have one of the best defenses in the Big Ten, we have an offense that is competent. And you feel like in any game, they can compete with anybody.
Isn't that crazy? We're sitting here talking about Iowa's the number 3 scoring defense in the country. Illinois is number 1. And I feel like Illini Nation is confident, or at least should be confident, against the number 3 scoring defense in the country. Like, it's crazy to kind of think about how far that has come, Andy.
Yeah, guys, I'm with you. And to go over some of the numbers as well, I pulled up the statistics. We're going to dive into the analytics a little bit. Nationally ranked, this is not Big Ten. This is not just in the Big Ten West inside the division. This is national. Every FBS team in the country. Like you guys mentioned, Illinois, the number 1 scoring defense, still have not allowed a touchdown at home after games against Chattanooga, Wyoming, and Virginia. Iowa trying to break that trend tonight, but you already talked about how bad their offense has been this year. Number 3 total defense, that is yardage. Number 3 rushing defense. And of course, the nation's lowest opponent passer rating. Like, this is a type of defense that Illinois has not seen in decades here. And Bret Beherns doing most of the work with guys that he had inherited from the previous coach staff. Ryan Walters doing an incredible job. We saw against games like Virginia last season where you're thinking, is this going to work out? And then towards the end of last year, it just kind of all flows together, playing really good football. At the beginning of this year, playing unbelievable football. Ryan Walters, of course, making that change from in the box to coming down to the field. That could have been one of the things to do with it, but the defense just playing so well right now. And it's starting with that front 4, Johnny Newton and Keith Randolph, the law firm, each leading the team in tackles. Randolph with 27, Newton with 26, each of them with 3 sacks on the season. The true freshman, Gabe Akis, having to step into a starting role with Ezekiel Holmes out for the season. He has 2 sacks as well. And then interception, the secondary has been incredible as well. Quan Martin and Kendall Smith leading them back there. Kendall Smith, one of the tops in the Big Ten with 3 interceptions on the season already. He came into this year with no career interceptions, so already 3 in the first 5 games. So I'll send it back to you guys just on that defensive momentum that the Illini have right now. We talked about how the offense, how they can attack the Iowa defense, which has been so great, has always been so great, at least as long as Kirk Ferentz has been in charge of the program. But what do you guys think about them continuing this trend? I mean, we know that Iowa's not been good this year, but, you know, it almost seems like an unbelievable pace to keep up to this point. Should it be expected that the defense can continue being as great as they have been through the first 5 games? Or, you know, is that a crazy ask at this point?
No, I don't think it is. And if I'm the Illinois defense, I feel stronger coming into this game facing the Iowa offense than I do if I'm the Iowa offense facing the Illinois defense, if that makes any sort of sense. It does in my head. But in terms of like, okay, what are you looking at here? If I'm the Illinois defense, I look at Iowa's offense and say, they're not great. They're not very good. And I think that can lend to a lot of confidence for them coming in.
Listen, on paper, this Illinois defense should demolish Iowa.
Yeah.
I think Iowa's got some talent, but like Illinois last year, I don't think their scheme is very good. I don't think they're coached very well on that side of the ball, and I think they need to make some changes over there. And I think like last week, you're playing a quarterback that if you can stop the run, and let me tell you, Iowa's running attack is not nearly as good as Wisconsin. They don't have a Braylon Allen. They don't even have, I don't think, a Ches Malusi. I think Caleb Johnson, a young kid, is a pretty talented running back, but their offensive line I don't think is as good as Wisconsin. So I think it's the same game plan, Brett. Shut down the run game, force a really questionable quarterback in the Big Ten West to throw into tight windows. Now, you have to be disciplined. Bret Beherns talked about complacency. They can't be complacent. But I don't think this group is. I think this group is really hungry. I think they want to keep that touchdownless streak alive. They haven't given up a touchdown. I heard Andy say that in this building yet. I think they want to keep that alive. And with the way their front is playing, and it starts with Johnny Newton, Keith Randolph, and Calvin Avery. Calvin Avery may not have the stats, but he is dominating at nose tackle, and that's just another force when you put it up with Johnny Newton and Keith Randolph, who might be playing in the NFL at this time next year. So to have those guys dominating like they are, Seth Coleman, Gayback is playing well. I think the linebackers get overlooked, but I think they've been really good last couple weeks in stopping the run. And you have a secondary you can trust right now because there's so many veterans back there. Devin Witherspoon's one of the best cover guys in the Big Ten. Quan Martin is so versatile. I think Taz Nicholson and Kendall Smith are playing really good football. We know Sidney Brown just packs a punch basically as an extra linebacker. I think this defense is legit. I expect it to continue. That's why I think Illinois is the reason they're favored in this game is because imagining Iowa scoring 20 points is really hard. Right?
I can't picture that happening. I think they've earned the trust. And for me, a big moment last week, Jeremy, was when Wisconsin marched right down the field, scored a touchdown. Illinois made some changes. They were resilient, and they didn't panic. And we talked with Ryan Walters about that this week, about how his group was mature enough to handle that moment, recognize what happened, and then go out and make a change. And we just hadn't seen that with Lovie Smith.
Yeah, I don't even know if they made much of a change. They just tipped their cap to Graham Mertz, who made some good throws, and they said, okay, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
And eventually, they got to Graham Mertz. Graham Mertz made some mistakes as they expected he would. So yeah, if they're dealt a blow early, it's a group it's weird, Brett. I'm just not worried about it.
Yeah.
I just think they have proven over the last calendar year, this is not just 5 games against weak opponents. This is a year's worth of playing Penn State, of playing Minnesota, of playing Big Ten teams and dominating them. So yeah, with Ryan Walters' crew, with the talent they have, I think there's a handful of NFL draft picks on this defensive side. I think they're a really good Big Ten defense, and against a bad Big Ten offense, I expect them to have a good day.
Right, and I do get like the atrophy from Illini Nation. I've been asked a lot. I'm sure you have as well, where it's just like, can I trust this team? Is this team? I had somebody come up to me this week, Jeremy, and they were like, I don't see the next win until Northwestern, and I'm like, why though? Like
they're not watching. They're not watching them because
this team is good.
Yeah, this defense is really, really good. The running back is right now one of the Doak Walker favorites and a dark horse in the Heisman. I don't think he's going to be a Heisman winner, but you have the best quarterback you've had in a really long time. You're the best offensive coordinator you've had in a really long time. You have a really good offensive line. Yeah, they could lose this game.
Sure.
They could lose this game. They could lose to Minnesota. There's a lot of toss-up games left in Purdue and all that. But you know what? I think Illinois is favored tonight for a reason. I think at home against Minnesota, it's going to be a toss-up game, but I expect Illinois could be favored in that one with Minnesota on an off week. And I think for a lot of the remaining games, this team could be favored because they're a well-rounded, well-coached, balanced football team. I know that takes getting used to, but I think you've seen even the Indiana game, like that was the better football team on the field. They've been the better football team against 3 Power 5 teams so far, and I don't think that's a fluke.
Yeah, I think as of right now, let's say in this moment, if Illinois doesn't play this game, I think Illinois is favored. If Illinois wins today, I think they're favored next week against Minnesota.
Yeah, I do too.
And I think it's a small favorite, like a 1 or 2 point favorite, but I still think they're favored, and I could still see that at 3 if Illinois wins today. If Illinois wins today, it's going to be ranked next week. I feel, or tomorrow, I feel pretty confident about that, that they're going to be a ranked team for the first time in a long, long time. And that's the progress. That's the incremental steps that Bret Beherns was brought here to do, and he's doing them. And like I understand for a lot of Illini Nation, that's still just like a weird concept. Similar to, I like how you mentioned that earlier with Illinois basketball, those moments in that 1920 season where it was just like progress.
Well, because last year
progress.
it was kind of like Iowa's freshman year, right? You had a Michigan State win that was kind of,
hey, this is fun, right?
Yeah, it's like, oh, they can do that again. But you didn't do it consistently.
Sure.
Last year you beat Penn State, you beat Minnesota on the road for football, but you just didn't do it consistently. You didn't follow up with a win against Rutgers, right? You dropped on against Purdue and Maryland that you should have won. Now you're starting to win them consistently. I get why they're still like, oh, Iowa, could this be a trap game? It's Iowa, right? It's a really good football team, a really good football program. But if they win this one, it's time to buy in, right? Like if
100%.
they win this one and are the better football team for a 6th straight week to start the season, it's time to buy into this. And I think that's what today's all about. Because we can talk about attendance, if you win today, I would think Minnesota, you're going to have 50,000 plus here for homecoming.
No, I would feel good about that. And I know we talk, a lot of people have, well, what's the attendance going to be? Look, I think if you get 40 plus here today, that's a good number.
I think
that would be the bar. I think they are going to get 40, but that would be my next step bar for attendance. I agree though, if Illinois wins today and walks off this field with a victory, I think the bar is 50 for next week, and I think they will come out. I think Illini Nation will come out and support that. And I like how you mentioned earlier, like the team staying focused. I don't really have a concern about that with Bret Beherns' team.
Because they're well coached.
Well, exactly. Imagine that, right?
They are just such a well coached team.
Yeah.
Like I think you go into every game now thinking Illinois is going to have as good of a game plan.
Yes.
It's all up to execution. But yes, I think last week not making it about him, even though I think beating Wisconsin at Wisconsin meant a lot to him. Today against his alma mater would mean a lot to him. But he made it about his program, because it is. It's about the program. Today, beating Iowa, ending that streak would be a huge step for his program.
And he said this week, it's like they're at Golden Corral. I love that line. They're just hungry. They're ready to eat. 24/7 access to Golden Corral, Andy. I don't know, how would you handle that, Andy? You just would you go like all
24/7
food, brunch food at Golden Corral?
Oh,
That's
man.
what he said. 24/7 Golden Corral. His team's hungry, ready to eat.
I gotta be honest.
I don't want to imagine that because I'm sick thinking about it.
Yeah, that's a lot of Golden Corral, Brett. I don't know if I could do that. All right, we're gonna stop the Golden.
Sponsor, guys.
That's true. All right, if Golden Corral wants to send me a message, they can. Anyway, we're gonna stop the Golden Corral talk. All right, no free ads on this show. We're gonna get to some of our predictions now as we lead up to about an hour to go before Illinois and Iowa. We'll take one last look at the matchup here. It's the 3-2 Hawkeyes, the 4-1 Fighting Illini. Illinois consensus is about a 4-point favorite in this one. The consensus total is about 36.5 points. You can do the math on what they think the final score will be there. As far as what they think players can do, Tommy DeVito is set at about a total of 170 passing yards, and I'd say it's pretty fair considering how good the Iowa defense is. Could not find a number for a Chase Brown rushing total, but for you guys, when I hand it back to you, what you think of all these totals, I'll give it about 100 yards for Chase Brown. I know this Iowa defense is really tough, and he was getting stuffed last week against Wisconsin before breaking out in the second half. I think 100 is pretty fair. So give me what your guys' predictions are in this one. I think we all know it's going to be a little low scoring, but unders under 40 are a little bit tough to go. Brett, we'll start with you. What you think in this one?
Well, what did you have? Did you and Joey pick a over/under on Chase Brown yards on the site?
Yeah, we said about 99.5. So
I think that's pretty fair, Andy.
Yeah.
And I think that's about where it should be for what he's done and produced. And will the 100-yard streak continue? I don't know.
I expected it to end last week, to be honest
Sure.
with you, and then I would expect again against another defense. Like, they have the best linebacker crew Illinois will play all year. Their defensive line is pretty good, so I think so. But all it takes is one big Chase Brown run and a couple first downs, and all of a sudden you're to 100 yards. So I can't You can't doubt this guy with what he's been able to do, what Illinois has been able to do on the ground, and then the fact that you have to worry about the pass. It might give Chase an extra play or two where he's not going against a stacked box. So I'm just not going to doubt the guy until he doesn't do it.
Yeah, because he's proved us wrong all these weeks.
I'm going to go over that. I did go under the points, but if it goes over the points, I think that's a good thing for Illinois.
Yeah, I
think
do
they
too.
probably had a good day.
Right. I would agree with that. And as far as Tommy DeVito, I think Illinois is going to obviously stick to the run and try to establish that and do that. But I would take the over on 170 for Tommy DeVito because I think Illinois is going to try and pass. And hey, look, Iowa certainly gets a lot of interceptions, one of the best teams in the country at that. But hey, I think Tommy DeVito can try and maximize his potential and go beat him.
He's been efficient. He's been really efficient, and he spreads the ball around so well. They're averaging 220 passing yards a game. And if Chase Brown does get bottled up, they've been successful through the air, and they should have opportunities because it probably means Iowa is stacking the box, and Tommy DeVito has been very accurate. So, got to avoid turnovers. That's more of a concern to me than yards because I do think the defense is going to really limit Iowa.
Yeah. All right, let's get to a prediction here, Andy. I had a number in my head. You want to go first, or do you want me to go?
Sure, I can go first. I don't
Okay.
know how. I say this in my preview and picks. I picked 20-13 Illinois.
Okay.
That seems like a high number for Iowa, to be honest with you. But as long as Illinois takes care of the ball, I think they'll find enough scoring drives for their defense to limit Iowa and win this game. I just think Illinois is the better team at this point.
I would agree. I'm also going to pick Illinois. I picked them last week. We'll see if we can continue this week. Did you get some hate last week, by the way?
No, because I think a lot of people were picking Wisconsin.
I think that's fine.
I really wanted to pick Illinois, but I came in after the Chattanooga game and I said I think they're going to win one of the next two. I really struggled to pick which one. So, Illinois, I think they're going to face adversity in this game. I think Iowa's going to challenge them at certain points. I just think Illinois has more in the toolbox with their entire
Yeah,
team.
this will no doubt be the biggest adversity game, at least on paper, that we're going to see that they've played so far, even way more than Indiana, certainly in Wisconsin. Yeah, go ahead.
One thing I want to mention is special teams. Iowa's probably got the best special teams in the country. Their punter is their MVP so far. We remember that talk. Punter's his MVP, and he is Australian. Torrey Taylor is really good. And Caleb Griffin's been slowed here recently by an injury. I expect that to continue. Hugh Roberts has been really inconsistent. So that could be a part of the game that Illinois cannot have mistakes on. They're not going to be as good as Iowa as their specialists, but they can't have mistakes like last year that really flipped the game.
All right, I am going to go, I'm stuck on 17 for Illinois. I don't know if they get to 17, but I'm stuck on it. I'm going to go 17-13. That's where I'm at with this game. I'm also picking Illinois. We'll see how it plays out. Andy, what do you got for this one?
So we've got 20-13, we got 17-13. Is that right? That's what we've got so far?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know if I'm going to go.
Middle it?
I'm not going to middle it. I don't even know. I've really struggled with this. For some reason, 23-6 Illinois has stuck in my head. I'm going to go. Yeah, I know.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to go with the no touchdown streak at Memorial Stadium is going to continue until I get proved wrong. I've been pretty down on the Iowa offense all year. If I get proven wrong, you get proven wrong. But I think Illinois finds a way. I don't know why those numbers stuck out in my head, but they did. And maybe it's just the Kool-Aid from the Wisconsin game last week, guys. But I think it should be a pretty good defensive battle here. And I don't know if we're really going to approach that total of 36.5 much in this one.
Well, I'm looking forward to what is hopefully a good game because Iowa has not played many good games this year in terms of like entertaining football. So that'll be my hope for this one, and we'll see.
I don't think
happens.
Illinois cares about entertaining.
No,
End the streak, get a win, get to 5-1, get it ranked. 200 recruits here today. It's a big moment, man. This feels like it could be a really big moment for Illinois if they find a way, whether it's 13-12 or 6-3.
Yeah, I don't think they
find
care.
a way to get a win.
They just want to walk out of here with a win. All right, Andy, that'll do it for us here at the field. We'll see what happens with Illinois and Iowa.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. We appreciate it. Stay warm out there, at least as warm as you can. Hopefully it doesn't get too cold. I see you guys are bundled up already. So we appreciate your coverage there. If you want to check out any more of Jeremy's stuff before the game, you can go to IlliniInquirer.com. That's with 24/7 Sports. They do a great job getting you set for the game. For us, you can stick with us. We will have your highlights and post-game sound after the game. News not coming on until at least 10:30 tonight. We'll have that on air online. You can catch Bret Beherns' entire post-game press conference right where you're watching this right now, whether that's Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or on the WCIA.com app. Wherever you're watching this, we'll have Bret Beherns' full post-game comments, win or lose after the game. We'll also be on the WCIA 3-in-1 podcast that'll come out later on tonight. It is a late one, so maybe you put that in the feed ready for tomorrow morning before NFL football gets going. Well, we'll take one last look at the matchup. This one getting started at 6:30 on Big Ten Network. 4-1 Illinois against 3-2 Iowa. Hopefully we will catch you back here after the game. Again, highlights, sound, and a live report more from Memorial Stadium after the game, but around an hour from kickoff here. Thank you so much for spending your lead up to the game with us. Hope you stay warm out there, and we will catch you after the game.